Have you ever felt someone slowly slipping away from you? Not because of something obvious, but in a way that leaves you questioning everything you said, everything you did, and even your own worth? One moment they're warm, present, and emotionally close, and the next they're distant, quiet, and hard to reach. And the more you try to fix it, the more it seems to push them further away. What if the truth is, the more you chase, the more they retreat? Not because they don't care, but because the way you're trying to hold on is exactly what makes them feel like they need to escape. Welcome to Avoidant Patterns, where we explore the hidden psychology behind emotional distance, attraction, and why people pull away in relationships, helping you understand connection without losing yourself. Have you ever felt like someone was so close to you one moment, and then almost overnight they felt distant, unfamiliar, like you couldn't quite reach them anymore? It leaves you confused, replaying everything in your head, trying harder, giving more, hoping to bring back what you once felt. But what if the issue isn't how deeply you care, but how that care is being received on the other side? This is Avoidant Patterns, where we explore the quiet dynamics behind connection, distance, and emotional behavior in relationships. Sometimes the most helpful shift is simply seeing things from a different angle. People with avoidant tendencies don't experience closeness the same way anxious or even secure individuals do. What feels like love to you can feel like pressure to them. What feels like effort on your side can feel overwhelming on theirs. And when that pressure builds, their instinct is not to move closer, but to step away. What draws them in is not intensity, it's not constant reassurance or emotional urgency, it's something quieter, something that often gets overlooked. It's the way you carry yourself within the connection. Many people assume that love grows stronger the more you express it, the more you push for clarity, the more you seek reassurance. But for someone avoidant, that kind of energy doesn't feel like closeness. It feels like expectation, like something they might not be able to meet without losing their sense of space. What actually creates connection is emotional safety, not silence, not detachment, but a calm, steady presence where feelings can exist without turning into pressure. Emotional safety means you can share how you feel without making it a demand. You're not asking them to fix your emotions or constantly prove themselves. You're simply expressing from a grounded place where your feelings belong to you. This kind of energy feels very different to someone who expects tension when things get emotional. They are used to distance leading to pursuit, to frustration, to emotional escalation. So when that doesn't happen, when you remain calm instead of reacting, it interrupts that pattern. It gives their system space to settle. Instead of bracing for conflict, they begin to relax. And in that quiet space, connection can start to grow in a more natural way. This doesn't mean ignoring your needs or pretending not to care. It's about how and when you express them. A calm, clear message carries far more weight than an emotional reaction. One creates pressure, the other creates safety. And safety is what allows someone who fears being overwhelmed to stay present without feeling like they're losing themselves. When they begin to associate you with calm rather than pressure, something shifts. You become someone they don't feel chased by or judged by. That kind of experience is rare for them. Over time, it can lead them to open up more, to reach out more, to show more of themselves, not because they were pushed into it, but because it finally feels safe enough to choose. At its core, this isn't about intensity, it's about relief, not about demands, but about consistency. When connection feels steady instead of overwhelming, love stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like something they can move toward. Another important piece is real independence, not something you perform to get a reaction, but something that exists whether they're present or not. Avoidant individuals are very sensitive to emotional dependence. When they feel like someone's stability is tied too closely to them, it triggers their need for space. It's not that they don't care, it's that they need to feel like they can breathe. True independence shows in how you live your life. You keep your routines, your interests, your friendships, your goals. You don't put everything on hold waiting for their attention. And that naturally changes how they see you. You're no longer someone who feels overwhelming. You become someone who is choosing the connection, not relying on it. That difference matters more than it seems. It creates curiosity instead of resistance. When you're not constantly reaching or placing them at the center of everything, they begin to notice you in a different way. The space you hold feels natural, not forced. And because it doesn't trigger their defenses, it often draws them in quietly. Over time, this creates a kind of balance. No chasing, no pulling away, just two people meeting without losing themselves. For someone avoidant, that balance feels safe. It allows closeness without suffocation and presence without pressure. When you're grounded in your own life, you stop trying to control where things are going. You stop forcing answers or clarity. You just show up as you are, steady and self-contained. And that steadiness becomes attractive in its own way because it removes pressure from the connection. At the same time, avoidant individuals are very sensitive to emotional instability. Even if everything seems fine, they are often scanning for signs that things might become overwhelming. Big emotional swings, sudden reactions, or intense conversations can feel unsafe to them, but calm consistency feels grounding, and that grounding is what keeps them engaged. This doesn't mean you become emotionally distant. It means you don't let your inner state swing wildly based on what they do. You stay steady even when things feel unclear. That kind of consistency creates something unfamiliar to them, a sense of emotional predictability. Many avoidant patterns come from experiences where emotions felt chaotic or too intense. So, when they meet someone who can express feelings without escalating, who can be disappointed without blaming, who can set limits without urgency, it slowly challenges what they expect from closeness. It shows them that connection doesn't have to come with chaos. When you respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively, you show emotional maturity. For example, if they take longer to reply or seem distant, a reactive response might assume rejection and confront them right away. A grounded response allows space while staying open. That sends a clear message. You're not trying to control the situation. You trust yourself and you trust the pace. Over time, that consistency stops feeling like something they need to defend against. It becomes something they can relax into. You become someone who doesn't create emotional storms when things get closer, who doesn't fall apart when things slow down, and who doesn't hand over responsibility for their emotions. For someone avoidant, that kind of emotional lightness stands out. And this is where connection often deepens in a quiet way, not through pressure, but because nothing about your presence feels overwhelming. They start to open up more, stay longer in conversations, show a bit more consistency, and allow themselves to be seen little by little. Calm consistency creates a space where closeness doesn't feel threatening. And for someone who is used to needing distance to feel safe, that experience can feel new in the best way. For many avoidant individuals, distance has always been a way to regulate themselves. When things feel too intense, they step back to find balance. Most people respond to that distance by chasing, questioning, or becoming emotional. But when you respond with steadiness instead, the pattern begins to change. You're no longer feeding the cycle of pressure and withdrawal. Instead of turning distance into conflict, you allow space without attaching fear to it. That changes what distance means emotionally. Usually, distance becomes loaded. It turns into a silent protest or gets met with anxious pursuit. Both of those reactions make the avoidant person want even more space. One feels like a burden, the other feels like a demand. But when you respond calmly without escalation, you introduce something different. Space without consequence. You're not disappearing to make them anxious, and you're not chasing to pull them back. You remain steady. That steadiness disrupts the usual push and pull. Distance no longer leads to emotional tension. It starts to lose its intensity. What once felt like something they needed to escape becomes less urgent because nothing dramatic follows it. When their system stops expecting emotional fallout, their defenses begin to soften. And this is not about playing games or trying to control the outcome. It's about staying grounded in yourself no matter what they do. You don't demand answers when they pull away, and you don't punish them when they return. You allow the connection to breathe, and in that space, something shifts. They begin to come back more naturally, not because they feel forced, but because distance no longer feels heavy. There's no emotional storm waiting for them, just steadiness. When someone can take space and still feel accepted without guilt or pressure, their internal alarm begins to quiet down. Slowly, they stop needing as much distance to feel safe. They come back more often, stay present longer, and feel less urge to escape. This is where the deeper change happens. Distance stops being a survival tool and becomes neutral. And when distance loses its weight, closeness no longer feels like confinement. It becomes something they can choose. And choice is everything here. For someone avoidant, love cannot feel like an obligation. It has to feel like something they are freely moving toward. When you don't chase them during distance and don't punish them for needing it, you become someone they feel safe returning to. Boundaries are often misunderstood in this dynamic. Many people think that setting limits will push an avoidant person away, but more often it's the lack of boundaries that creates imbalance. Without them, one person ends up overgiving while the other manages the distance, and that creates silent pressure. Clear boundaries show self-respect. They show that you understand your emotional limits and are willing to honor them. That kind of clarity is grounding. It tells the other person that you won't lose yourself in the process or build resentment quietly. Healthy boundaries are not threats or ultimatums. They are calm, honest expressions of what works for you. Instead of demanding constant communication, it might sound like this. I feel more at ease when communication is steady, so when things become too inconsistent, I naturally step back and focus on my own space. There's no blame in that, only clarity. And clarity tends to land much better with someone avoidant than emotional pressure ever will. It removes confusion without creating tension. It shows them where you stand without making them feel trapped or forced into a response. In the beginning, your boundaries might get tested, not because they don't respect you, but because inconsistency is what they're used to. Many of them have dealt with people who bend themselves too far just to keep the connection alive. So when your limits stay calm and steady, without emotional reactions, something starts to change inside them. Respect begins to build, and respect is often the foundation for deeper emotional connection. Boundaries also protect you. They keep you from falling into the pattern of giving too much, feeling frustrated, and then pulling back. Instead of trying to get reassurance from them, you stay grounded in your own standards. That alone shifts everything. You're no longer trying to earn consistency from them. You're defining what consistency means for you. And over time, boundaries teach without arguments or pressure. They show what leads to closeness and what creates distance without emotional outbursts or punishment. That creates a connection based on clarity, not fear. Another pattern that often overwhelms avoidant individuals is overgiving. It's not that kindness or generosity is a problem, but when you give too much emotionally, it often carries silent expectations. Even if you don't say it out loud, it can feel like there's pressure to respond in a certain way. That pressure is usually what makes them step back. Balanced emotional presence feels completely different. You're still warm, still open, still caring, but you're not losing yourself in the process. You show affection without overextending. You show interest without chasing, and you give without trying to secure love through effort alone. That sense of lightness matters. It allows closeness to grow without triggering their fear of being overwhelmed. Overgiving, on the other hand, creates imbalance. One person starts carrying more emotional weight, and the other begins to feel responsible for maintaining that balance. Even if it's unspoken, that responsibility creates distance. When your emotional availability is balanced, that weight disappears. You stay open, but you don't drain yourself. You allow them to come towards you as well. You give them room to invest at their own pace. And when they do, it feels natural, not forced. That sense of choice makes the connection stronger. You also stop over-explaining your emotions. You say what you feel in a simple, clear way, and then you let it be. You don't try to convince them, and you don't try to control the outcome. You trust that real connection comes from alignment, not pressure. That kind of confidence shows emotional independence. Over time, this creates a very distinct feeling around you. You are warm, but not overwhelming, present, but not demanding, caring, but not losing yourself. That combination is rare. And when you mix that with emotional safety, it naturally keeps someone interested without you having to force anything. All of this works together in a quiet way. Emotional safety lowers fear. Independence removes pressure. Consistency builds trust. Giving space without punishment reduces resistance. Boundaries create respect, and balanced emotional presence keeps attraction alive. None of this is about manipulation or control. It's about how you show up when you're grounded in yourself. When you reach that place, your focus changes. You're no longer trying to make someone stay. You're creating a connection that doesn't require you to abandon who you are. You're not trying to pull love out of someone. You're living in a way where love can exist without strain. And whether they meet you there or not, you remain whole. That's usually when the dynamic shifts, because the connection finally feels free, not something that needs to be managed or escaped. And when love feels free, steady, and mutual, it actually has a chance to last. What's really happening here is not about making an avoidant person fall in love. It's about understanding how different nervous systems respond to stress and closeness. People with avoidant tendencies aren't pulling away from love itself. They're reacting to feeling overwhelmed when emotions become too intense too quickly, or when closeness starts to feel like it comes with expectations. Their system moves into protection. That can look like distance, silence, slower responses, or needing space. It's not necessarily rejection. It's often just a way to lower internal pressure. On the other side, someone who is more anxious or emotionally expressive may see that distance as a sign of loss. That creates a push to reconnect, which then increases the avoidant person's sense of pressure. And just like that, a cycle forms. One person moves closer, the other pulls away, and both feel like they're reacting naturally while the pattern keeps repeating. What changes this isn't finding the perfect way to express love. It's reducing the sense of emotional threat in the interaction. And threat here doesn't mean danger. It means overwhelm, expectation, or loss of personal space. When someone feels like their independence is being compromised, even in small ways, their system tightens. This is why emotional safety matters so much. It's not about being emotionless. It's about not turning every feeling into urgency. You can express your needs, but when those needs come with pressure for immediate resolution or emotional consequences, it can feel heavy to someone avoidant. Over time, they may start to associate closeness with responsibility they never agreed to carry. Independence helps because it removes that hidden expectation. When your life continues regardless of their availability, it takes away the feeling that they are responsible for your emotional state. That's why avoidant individuals often respond better to someone who is engaged but not dependent. It shows that connection is a choice, not a necessity. Consistency plays a similar role. Many avoidant individuals have experienced emotional environments that felt unpredictable. Warm one moment, overwhelming the next. Because of that, they become sensitive to emotional shifts. When you are steady over time, it reduces their need to stay on guard. They don't have to constantly read between the lines or prepare for sudden changes. Boundaries are often misunderstood here. They are not about creating distance or teaching someone a lesson. They are simply a clear expression of what works for you and what doesn't. What makes them powerful is that they remove confusion. Instead of guessing or relying on unspoken expectations, everything becomes clearer. And that clarity actually reduces anxiety on both sides, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Overgiving, on the other hand, tends to disrupt the balance. When one person consistently gives more, even without asking for anything back, it can create an unspoken imbalance. The avoidant partner may begin to feel pressure. not because they were asked for something, but because they feel like they owe something emotionally. That feeling can lead them to pull away, not because they don't care, but because they're trying to regain their sense of autonomy. What often gets overlooked is that avoidant attachment doesn't mean someone can't connect deeply. It means they are sensitive to feeling emotionally overwhelmed or responsible for someone else's inner world. When that pressure is removed, many of them actually become more open, more communicative, and more present than expected. But that only happens when they don't feel pushed, managed, or judged through emotional reactions. At the same time, this doesn't mean you ignore your own needs. Healthy connection doesn't require you to shrink yourself or stay silent. If your needs are constantly unmet, or if you're always the one doing the emotional work, then the balance is off. Emotional safety is not about one person adjusting endlessly. It's about both people not triggering each other unnecessarily. In stronger connections, something more natural develops over time. One person shares something, the other doesn't panic or shut down. Space is allowed, and then reconnection happens without blame or pressure. That rhythm is what allows closeness to grow in a way that feels safe. It's also important to understand that no matter how well you show up, it doesn't guarantee that an avoidant person will always move closer. These patterns can soften in the right environment, but they don't automatically disappear. There still needs to be willingness, emotional capacity, and real compatibility. Otherwise, you can end up doing all the emotional work while your own needs slowly go unmet. The real goal is not to stop someone from pulling away. It's to stay grounded enough that you don't lose yourself when they do. When you reach that point, one of two things usually happens. Either the connection becomes more stable because both people are meeting in a healthier way, or it becomes clear that the other person isn't able to meet you where you are. And both outcomes are valuable because they bring clarity instead of confusion. So the deeper truth here is simple. Secure connection doesn't come from trying harder to hold on to someone. It comes from being steady enough that love doesn't require you to abandon yourself. When love is mutual and safe, it grows naturally. When it's not, no strategy can replace what's missing. In the end, it's not about winning someone over. It's about staying grounded in who you are and allowing only the kind of love that doesn't take away your peace. If this spoke to you, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Avoidant Patterns, and turn on the bell so you don't miss future insights. In the end, everything comes down to one simple truth. This isn't about figuring out the perfect way to make someone stay. And it's not about changing who you are to fit into someone else's emotional comfort zone. It's about understanding how different people experience closeness and choosing to stay grounded in yourself no matter what they do. When you stop chasing, stop overgiving, and stop reacting from fear, the entire dynamic shifts. You create a space where connection can exist without pressure, where emotions can be expressed without turning into demands, and where distance doesn't automatically lead to panic. That kind of presence feels calm, steady, and safe. And for someone who is used to feeling overwhelmed in relationships, that safety can open the door to real connection. But the deeper point goes beyond them. It's about you not losing yourself in the process. It's about keeping your standards, honoring your needs, and staying emotionally balanced, whether someone comes closer or pulls away. Because real connection should never require you to abandon your peace just to keep it alive. When you show up with emotional stability, clear boundaries, independence, and balanced care, one of two things will naturally happen. Either the relationship becomes healthier and more mutual, or it becomes clear that the other person isn't able to meet you in that space. And that clarity is powerful because it replaces confusion with truth. So the goal is not to win someone's love or prove your worth. It's to build a connection where love feels free, not forced, where closeness feels safe, not overwhelming, and where both people choose each other without pressure. And when that kind of connection exists, it doesn't need to be chased, controlled, or constantly questioned. It simply grows. If this video helped you see relationships in a new way, make sure to like, subscribe to Avoidant Patterns, and hit the bell icon so you never miss deeper insights like this. And if it truly resonated with you, drop the word steady in the comments so I know you're building connection without losing yourself.